Hello and welcome back to Podcast with a K. I'm your host Karla with a K, and I'm joined here on a special edition. It's the midweek, it's the midday. It's not your typical Sunday, if you can tell if you're watching, if you can tell if you're listening. However, it is an exclusive with lead singer of Arizona, the band, not the state, not the T, Twitch partner, and mustached icon, Zachary Charles. Welcome to the show.
Damn. literally every single one of those things. Yeah.
Every accolade you must claim.
Yeah, here we are. It is the midweek.
It is. How are you feeling?
I feel like it's the middle of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been staying up. I've been staying up late, getting up early. I mean, we're finishing our third. There was a kind of a question mark at the end of that third there. I kind of forgot what album we were on. Yeah, we're finishing our third album right now. And so it has been a lot of like my usual tomfoolery, but also to add to that, kind of balancing, trying to like get as much as I can done while also doing like my other usual projects. So, I'm feeling like I am kind of constantly awake right now.
That's fair. Yeah. You do be doing a lot.
I do be doing a whole lot. Yeah, so that's kind of the wrap up of kind of how I'm feeling, because it's a mix between playing shows like that, doing my like weird house project stuff, and then also finishing. I'm sorry, not house music project, because that's also a whole other thing.
That's another thing.
That's not happening. Wink. But and then doing like the album stuff. So
sure, you guys are the definition of grind, don't stop.
Yeah.
But
I suppose so. But people wouldn't know that because it takes 2 fucking years to get an album out for the most part. So everyone is like,
well, I mean,
is like, what is Arizona doing this whole time?
This is true, but anyone that has ever sat through one of your production streams would know why it takes so long. I know that, all of us that have sat in there at some point, we'll keep the views up, we'll make sure you're still alive and doing your thing, but it's the same loop over and over because you're checking for little things. I remember one time you spent half an hour trying to get a drum loop on the exact right count because it matters.
Yeah. I guess you stop feeling that way though, right? Like once you do it for enough years, like you kind of forget that you're looping the same 2 bars over and over again, because you're like, I mean, it would be like the same thing as trying to, it's like when you're doing anything super like super repetitive or super detailed, like in any line of work, like when you're doing it to someone else looking at you, like, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. Like, it looks exactly the same to me, or like it feels good, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But to your brain, when you're hearing it, like you're listening for one particular thing, and so you kind of forget that you're listening to it on loop.
Yeah.
But subconsciously, it means that like by the time the album comes out,
it'll be great.
Yeah, I mean, it works the way it's supposed to work. Like once you put all the sounds and all the things together, but by the time it comes out, like you like don't even hear it the same way, and you don't even listen to it. Like I haven't listened to Gallery in God knows how long.
Yeah.
And I'm more used to the live versions of it now, because we play the songs live. And when I hear the studio versions of it, sometimes I'm like, oh shit, that's right. That's what that sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
You get years worth of listening to it while you're making it. So yeah.
It's kind of like listening to you sing versus listening to you speak, as, not being a part of the band, but not being a part of the general fan base, because we do see a lot more of you around the Twitch and Discord circles.
Yeah. Well, I definitely live there more than I live on the Arizona stuff. Or the stage. Yeah, you know what I mean? That's like my day-to-day kind of life. And I've been trying to mix them a little bit. So like you mentioned it, like
production streams.
Yeah, production streams. Like I really enjoyed like the Twitch platform and live streaming and stuff like that, because I kind of always thought that social media in general over the past 6 years that we've been Arizona has changed fundamentally quite a bit, but there are some things that are kind of still the same, and it's really just about it's really about trying to figure out ways that you can reach people, but in a way that is not necessarily, maybe pre-made content or
Right.
catered towards one thing or the other thing, and it's supposed to kind of feel natural. And I've always struggled
And
with
it
that because
is, yeah.
I just didn't know where or how to do that. And so I think eventually I kind of found Twitch and, gaming and tech stuff and me doing shit around my house and all this weird stuff like
Yeah.
that's how I kind of felt most natural. But eventually, as we started working on this next album, I figured it might be fun to try to stream some of what I do at work. But it's funny because like I thought that was gonna be honestly boring as shit for people to sit there and watch me do that because I'm just like, what the fuck you want to watch me do? Sit here and like,
Right.
mess with a 2 bar loop over and over again for hours and hours. But I guess over the hours you do see kind of a record come together. So it's nice to include a
And
little
it
bit of
is
that
cool
process.
too, because I feel like a lot of y'all's fans, because of, like you said, you've started sharing like your interest in gaming, your interest in tech, and those are kind of the type of people you've drawn to your audience, at least here on Discord and Twitch.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of appealing to that side of your audience more so than just people who are there for the music and for the shows, because you do get them, coming in, when's the next album, when the next tour, like all of those
Yeah.
questions. But you also have people who are asking you real specific stuff about your process, about Ableton. I remember you gave a full tutorial once. Like, you have people who know what they're talking about and who understand what you're talking about, and you're
Yeah.
also getting people to find an interest in production. Like, there's been a lot of people who have been like, well, how do I work for you? How do I work for someone in the industry? Because you guys have kind of done it all as well before you were a band.
Yeah, so that's always an interesting question that people will bring up to me, like either during the live streams or during just general conversation or sometimes a meet and greet and stuff. Like, um, we did come from like a producer, songwriter, media, really just general stuff like background before Arizona, since Arizona was kind of like the last project that we were kind of even interested in doing just as a joke as a couple friends. And so like coming from sort of a behind the glass world and then ending up here was so weird for us that I think that's
Surreal.
kind of one of yeah, it's like but it's also one of my favorite questions to get when people talk about that because I feel like um, I feel like any other job, right? Like if you there are other professions that do have tight circles, obviously, right? Like you can make a lot of money. Like my father, and a lot of my buddies now. My father was he was like a pipe fitter and did a bunch of other like project management and things later in his life. And he was with a union. And so
Hmm.
like you can get, for example, like you can get a construction job or you can get a union job of some kind in that same sort of construction field and the pay is better. There's more of a circle of people to it and et cetera. But the thing is like if you wanted to know about how to join a union or to get a union job or do things like that, you can find out, you know what I mean? Like, if you know somebody in the union, like, it's pretty simple and, it's hard work, obviously, but, like,
Right.
there's a way into it and you can find it out. As opposed to this industry, and there's a lot of industries like that. Now, particularly with
Sure.
this industry, that doesn't work really the same because there are so many variables and there's so many things that just either go unsaid or there's like this big question mark around it. It's like, oh, well, you just have to do one thing and get big and that's how it
Yeah.
fucking works. And it's that's not
Not at
true. You know
all.
what I mean? Like it's not true at all. And so when people ask us that, I think it resonates because like we spent probably the better part of like 10 years, 12 years, something like that, like really just working as producers and songwriters and trying to, and other things like, Dave worked in a lot of media stuff and we spent so much time doing all that stuff and kind of built our built our skill set off that. But none of it worked for us. It wasn't like that's what got us
Yeah.
big. It was just like a regular sort of day-to-day grind that we were doing. And it's based off things like internships. Like, we started as interns in a studio and picked up things there and then kind of just being around people and
Hmm.
networking and things like that and just getting ourselves in the room and doing lots of different types of work,
For sure.
engineering and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, eventually, like you kind of just find your way into different circles of people doing different things. You end up
Yeah.
doing different work, and then eventually, you get. I guess you develop a skill set enough to where then you can kind of branch out and start doing your own things if you
Hmm.
want. And it's a long fucking grind, and there's no real right answer. It's just a matter of kind of working towards whatever goal that you have, and that's like, that's the exact opposite of what people think it is.
Yeah,
People
yeah,
think
because
it's
it's
like
a
it
lot
just
of what you
happens.
know. Exactly. It's not just the lucky break, because I mean, of course, that is something that is necessary to become known, but it's a lot
Yeah.
of what you know, knowing what you're talking about, and also knowing who you're talking to.
Yeah, it's people and networking like anything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's kind of the interesting thing about Arizona, because like how we I guess how we view this project is always going to be inherently a little bit different than I feel like the way I guess it exists in the world, because
Yeah.
we after so many years of trying to figure out what it was we were going to do, and then finding out that the work that we were doing was cool, and we had found some level of success doing it, I suppose,
Mhm.
depending on how you measure it. But um it wasn't really working out the way we wanted it to work out. And so for us, what you would call like our thing that happened in our life,
Yeah.
right? Like um where you don't you're not like in a band that people know, right? And
Right.
then you are in a band that people know. It's
All of
like,
a
well,
sudden,
what the
you're
fuck
opening for Panic
happened?
at the Disco.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. You're doing like a North America and a Europe tour, like in arenas, and it's like, and people are
Casual.
like, well, what? People are like, what happened in between? And it's like there wasn't really. It's not about what happened in between. It's about what happened leading up to it.
Yeah.
Really, everything before. And so it's like all this shit that we had gone through as homies, because like Dave and I knew each other here in New Jersey, since we were like really, really young, and then met Nate, who's also from New Jersey,
Yeah.
but he was going to school in Boston. Dave was going to
Berkeley,
a
right?
different school in Boston. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So Nate was going to Berkeley. Dave was going to Emerson. They ended up being roommates through a mutual friend at like an off-campus spot. I'd go visit Dave. Nate was there. We met. Oh, shit, he's from Jersey. Hey, what's up? Whatever.
Yeah.
And so, but then again, that was still when we were like 17, 18, something like that.
Yeah.
So like we had all known each other for a long time and been working together on music stuff and a bunch of other for a long time. And then at some point, after years and years and years, and all of a sudden we're like in our 20s, because Dave and I had been doing it since we were like 13 or
Right.
14. We had like kind of known each other from school, and like so for a long time, just having this idea of um, of how things may work or may not work. When they don't work, we were just kind of like, okay, well, fuck it. We've been friends for so long. We've never actually sat down and just made some music for ourselves. So we
Mhm.
we kind of decided to take a summer and do that. I mean, I'm skipping a lot of here, but basically
No,
the
for
long
sure.
and short of it is that we were basically like, we're gonna do a couple songs, put it on SoundCloud. Everybody's gonna laugh, and then we're gonna fuck off, right? Then I'm gonna go become like a history teacher because everything else in my life
Right.
didn't work out, and blah blah blah. And I think that's what it was. Like we were just having fun creating a brand, because we were like, oh, we can give it a logo, and like we
Yeah.
can, when we upload it, we can make it look like a real upload, and it's like a
Hell
blah
yeah.
blah blah,
Helvetica for the
whatever.
win.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was all a f***ing joke,
Right.
and even the name, like Nate was wearing an Arizona
Mhm.
iced tea hat when we had joked about what to call it, and
Yeah.
we thought, Dave made the joke that it was a cool looking word and spaced it out, and we made like a hipster joke about it or
Yeah.
something. And um it was kind of just like a we'll just we'll just kind of pretend it's real for like a summer, because that'll be funny.
Mhm.
um but I guess the joke was kind of on us, because the
Joke's
lesson
on
we
you,
kind of
you're
yeah
successful now.
yeah the lesson we took out of that was like, because we didn't really take it too seriously, and because we had acquired a bunch of different skill sets over the course of however many years working in that field in general. When we kind of just turned it into this joke for a second and just didn't really give ourselves any barriers or boundaries, um it it was the thing that I guess stood in a way that was like, if it looks real and sounds real,
Yeah.
right,
Fake it till you make it,
then
right?
yeah, then it kind of becomes real.
Mhm.
And we didn't expect that part, really. So there is, I know that was kind of a story, but I guess in that is a little bit of an answer to some of the
No,
questions that
it's
people ask
great,
us,
yeah.
and
I
some
mean, I
advice,
don't know who's
etc.
listening, who knows or who doesn't know y'all. I mentioned y'all every now and then whenever a new song comes up, whenever, something about the internet comes up, because y'all have become kind of ingrained in also the social aspect of the internet for me and the people I've met because of y'all or because of video games. But it's been really interesting to see y'all's career evolve because I actually was originally keeping track of your journey through Nate, who I had found because of Josh Chomick or the Computer Nerd 01 on YouTube. So
Love Nomic.
yeah, and you mentioned you listen to house. I know Nate used to listen to heavier rock. Whenever he was at
Yep.
Berkeley, he would post videos doing his little guitar covers. And
Mhm.
so, as you said, it was cool to see you guys go from like as a joke. You had a cover of Lady in Red that was great. You guys had a couple
Yeah.
of originals that on SoundCloud people just kind of didn't listen to. People are more so into the Lady in Red cover. And then the Bad Blood cover with Chomick is actually where
Mhm.
I saw you guys like originally spark, and I was like, they could be something. I hope one day they become a real band. And time
Yeah.
passes. Nate posts, "Oh, we just got signed to I think Atlantic," and I was like,
Yeah.
"This started as a joke on like YouTube, and
Yeah.
you now like what is
Yeah.
going on?" And seeing your sound evolve as well, because as I said, you guys listen to different types of songs on your own, and the music y'all make is nothing that y'all tend to listen to.
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah, I think
So
we
how did
try
that come
to
about? Yeah.
yeah, I think we try to like, um, subconsciously, I feel like maybe we try to incorporate some of the things that we enjoy into our own music, right? Like, that's a natural thing I guess
Yeah.
you'll do, like, when we're all touching the record, like, we end up kinda giving it some of the styles that we are close to or, like, listening to
Yeah.
or where we come from, but,
There's definitely traces of it. There's some songs that have some sick breakdowns, and there's some songs that have amazing guitar riffs. Like you have elements of what you like,
yeah.
but the overall sound, you guys lean more towards like indie, electro pop,
Yeah.
alternative, essentially.
Yeah, and that's, well, I was actually just talking about this, not super long ago, but basically I think that comes down to 2 things. I think it's like some of it is technique, obviously, like,
Hmm.
we come from, we come from like a sort of pop crossover production world. It's like
Right.
that's what we worked in mostly. And I think that's sort of where like we are comfortable formatting songs in. Like
True.
we just got comfortable working in that genre and you learn to like any kind of genre of music at least a little bit sometimes based on certain things that are in there. I don't think that I ever have hated any particular
No.
genre of music or anything because you can borrow things from everything. And so, when we began to um when we began to start making our own music, I think that's kind of what it was, is where we were making playlists of stuff that we really enjoyed listening to
Hmm.
and, been like, "Oh, this fucking thing is sick here." Like, "Oh, this synth thing is cool," or this groove is really sick," or
Yeah.
"This type of vocal is really cool," and, like, you take pieces of what you enjoy, and then you format it into, um, I guess, well, we formatted it into the type of music that we were used to making, which was, just more verse, chorus,
Right.
bridge, chorus, out, fucking style, music, and that's kind of touching on what I was saying earlier, is that like you do have to develop some sort of skill set, I think, before you can, I guess, freely express stuff that you want to, you know, basically what I'm saying is like, you can create music totally freeform
Yeah.
and sometimes you'll get really lucky and it comes together and sometimes it's kind of messy and it's all over the place. But I think the idea is that if you it's like language, it's like speaking. It's
Yeah.
like if you want to know how to better express yourself or how to, whatever it is, it's like the more you study a language, the more you study the grammar of a language, like the better you can express yourself, right? And
Yeah.
like that's what it is. It's like, there's like songwriting and production techniques and formats, and also the technical aspect of things, like with Ableton or any DAWs or whatever the fuck it is,
Hmm.
and instrumentation and music and stuff. That is the language for that type of expression, right? And so
Yeah.
I think since we had so much of that beforehand, even though it wasn't always necessarily focused on what we enjoyed listening to all the time, you take that and then you can kind of make anything work, I guess. That was kind
Yeah.
of part of our job, was to take anything,
Exactly.
make it work, and so, I think we were just doing it, but for ourselves. Like, we were
Yeah,
the sort of project that we would have had going on, and we just took our
exactly.
stuff and made it work,
And
so.
to be fair, I don't know if this is true for you, but I feel like whenever you go into an artistic career, there's also kind of a degree of wanting to separate work from not work. Because I know whenever I'm, engaging in a new project, I don't want it to kind of like seep into the content that I consume on my leisure time. Like I don't necessarily want that line to consistently be blurred
Mm.
because you do notice like technical things about whatever it is you're working in.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the same way that, like, the same way that producers or musicians or whoever, right, would listen to songs,
Hmm.
is probably the same way directors or, whatever, like, watch movies, or the
Yeah.
same way that, that photographers view photos, or,
Mhm.
like, you're gonna lose a little bit of you're gonna lose a little bit of one thing and gain a little bit of another thing,
Yeah.
right?
Slightly less
You
sense of wonder, but more of a sense of understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's one of the possible combinations. Yeah, I think it can be different for everybody, but for me, in my experience, I know that when I listen to music, I think the way I judge music now, right,
Mhm.
which could be different from a lot of people, is like, when I like listen to a record, and I judge whether or not, like, oh, I really love this song, or, you know uh, or this song reminds me of this, or reminds me of that, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Um, I think I see it in my head as like a session. Like, every time a new sound comes in, or whatever it is, I
Yeah.
I try to imagine, like, what is that synth, or what is that sound?
Mhm.
Like, how hot is it in the mix? Do they have it
Right.
panned? Is the pan moving? Like, is it a
Yeah.
plug-in doing the pan? Is it automated? Whatever. And, like, I feel like that's not how people hear records, and I would imagine someone hearing that that's how I listen to music, and they're
Yeah.
like, "That's fucking terrible." Like, how, you know what I mean?
But, like,
When
once
in
you
re
know how something's made, that's
Yeah,
it.
when in reality, like, it's not terrible for me, because, like, it just means that the things that are really, really inspiring and impressive to
Mhm.
me are the things that, of most of the time when I hear things,
Yeah.
I can give you a pretty good guess on, like, what that is, or how it
Yeah.
was made, or whatever. The most inspiring or impressive things, musically, or when I hear something, I'm like, "How the did you do that? Like, what is that?"
Yeah.
Like, the fucking the groove, or the drums are so fucking
Right.
tight, or that whatever the sound that is so nuts, and I
Things
think
that
that,
you
like,
yourself
it's
wouldn't have thought to do.
right, exactly, and I feel like, so, you gain a little bit of a different avenue of being, inspired or connected to music, but you do lose a little bit of the sense of, of it just, it just feels good because it
Yeah.
feels good, like, you lose a little bit of that, or I lost a little bit, I don't know if
Yeah,
everyone
no.
does, but I lost a little bit of that, but,
It doesn't ruin it, though. It just changes how you interpret it, I guess.
yeah, yeah, for sure,
I will say,
which is
after learning
like.
Ableton, the amount of presets that I like hear in like top 40 songs, I'm like, you guys are getting paid for this? I barely got an A on this project.
Well, that's the other thing about music creation, is that, there's only so many notes, and there's
True.
only so many presets, and there's only so many sounds and instruments in the world, and I think that um one can get creative with how they use that
Yeah.
stuff, but at the end of the day, it's really just it's a matter of, like, I guess, how they're employed,
Mm,
and that's something, like, if how how you use something, or in conjunction with what, that there's gonna be, there's gonna be a lot of times that in the future I'm gonna hear things that I've used before, and there
yeah.
has already been, the funniest thing, actually,
Do
speaking
tell.
of, all that, is, so, for anyone who doesn't know, right, one of the one of the more recent music creation tools is called Splice, right? It's a platform that essentially is a creator platform where people can upload, um, different types of sounds and loops and packs, right? And it's a subscription-based service where you can use these sounds and you just share sounds with each other, and that's kind of, I'm probably making it seem a little bit more community-based than it really is, but that is
The
essentially
core
the
of it,
idea.
yeah.
It's a loop, it's a fucking loop and sound library, basically, right? Anyway, people will upload their own packs and sounds. And so I think we were in Austin doing some writing last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was. And we came across like a pack of loops, like a splice pack of loops, and there was a bunch of guitar loops in there. And one of them was called like Summer Vibes or Summer Something or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And it was literally Summer Days, one of
No
our songs,
way.
but it was like revoiced. It was like bum
Uh-huh.
bum 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 bum, like some
It's
weird, you know
literally
what I
your
mean?
song though.
And it wasn't exactly the same, but it was,
Mhm.
whatever. And we loved that because it was just so funny to hear somebody basically rip off fucking Summer Days, because that's how
Yeah.
you kind of know you're like, oh shit, like. And um and that's kind of what I mean, though, right? Like, somebody else could take that and turn it into something totally different from that loop, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, you know what I mean? And that shit doesn't really phase me too much,
No.
because it's like,
It's
I
it's a
I
sign that you've
have
made it.
I have done that throughout my entire career. Like,
Mhm.
like they say the good borrow the best steal, right? Like, that's
Fair,
that's
fair,
like a
fair,
funny
fair.
that's like a funny thing that my buddy always said, and like, I I think that there's some kind of truth to that, in the sense that, if you're really inspired by something, I think straight up copying something is obviously, the joke of that saying kind of stands in one way, but straight up copying something, I don't think is the point. I think it's just like, if you're inspired by something and you can kind of take it and make it yours, then that's what creation is.
That's fair.
So yeah, there's a lot of that in the world, especially now that we all kind of share the same plugins and the same
Yeah.
presets and shit.
The
So
internet is a blessing and a curse, but it's always entertaining. We
yeah,
have reached our halfway point, and we have yet to take a song break. So I
sweet.
want to ask you, would you like to listen to the actual version of Summer Days, or do you have a different song of y'all's that you'd prefer? Like, which one's your favorite? What's the one that you listen to and you're
Um,
like, this is the song? We could just
That's a
listen to
good
your newest
question.
as well. You have options.
I do like um I do like People Crying Every Night. That's a really good song.
Yeah, which is one of the originals.
One of the originals, one of the AZ originals, yeah.
That was one of them, and so was "Let Me Touch Your Fire," I believe, of the
Let Me
of the
Touch Your Fire was
SoundCloud
the first
pack.
one we
Yeah,
ever did. Yeah. Yeah.
which
That was
I thought it was such a shame that at that time more people weren't into it, because I'm like, do you guys just not hear like how different this is from everything else that they've like been interested in? Like, this is really cool. Like, this is the start of like them creating their sound. But alas, I
Yeah,
digress.
that was way before I think we even thought about the band. Um, and so that's kind of why it was so much fun to make some of that original stuff, which is why it's fun to hear it sometimes.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we have our answer. Without further ado, here is "People Crying Every Night." So that was "People Crying Every Night" by Arizona. If you were my Alexa, you would have said Arizona, because they spaced it out like
You
absolute
have
weirdos.
no clue how upset I am that that's still the case, because it's like everyone else has gotten that right. I Now, mind you, to be fair,
Yes, sure.
before I say this,
Sorry, Daddy
I
Bezos.
there are a lot there are there are a lot of there are a lot of ways that I might be wrong about this. I also have not gone upstairs to my Echo and tried this
Uh-huh.
recently. So
Uh-huh.
maybe they have fixed it. And also, it maybe works on another Amazon platform, and maybe just not the Echo, or maybe not. I don't know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is that a lot of people have gotten that right, where they used to. So, for example, like
Yeah.
Spotify used to alphabetically sort us under R.
You guys are still under R.
Oh, are we really?
Yes, you are.
Are you sure about that?
I will check for you right now, but before the show, in case this was going to be live, I did check, and you are in my library as an R band.
because we are Arizona.
Yeah, you're not Arizona, you're one Arizona.
That's right. Yeah.
I will find it.
I feel like that has been fixed maybe somewhere, like some places in Spotify.
R.
Is it really?
Yeah. You're
Okay.
in here
Well,
after actually it's really fun. You're in here after Rehab, your collab with them.
okay. Well, that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's our fault, really, right? It's our fault for fucking doing it the way we do it because they asked us when we had got signed, and at first and we were going through everything. I remember uh, our our then product manager Brooks, who I love and is one of the funniest guys in the world. I remember him asking us like, "Hey, so how stuck are you guys on Arizona?" And we were like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he was like, "Well, for starters, that's going to be a huge SEO nightmare. Like, people are not going to be able to find you at all.
Yeah.
And also, like, the caps and spaces can certainly be like a stylistic thing, but for copy, like, is that how you want to keep it?" And I think we were so hell bent on the idea that because this was a huge joke,
Yeah.
we need to commit. Like, we were like, everything needs to just be stupid. Like,
Yeah.
everything just needs to be the dumbest thing possible.
Mhm.
And we will take things to that extreme everywhere else, and then the real stuff is going to be the content, the music. And so so we didn't, we were like, nah, let's just keep it. And he was like, oh well, all right.
I mean,
And
congrats, you got your wish.
and he was like, good luck getting getting those handles, and like Twitter gave it to us,
Twitter gave
but
it to you.
Instagram was like, guys, like, we aren't doing that. Like, they were like, Chicago doesn't even have it. Like,
Yeah.
or Kansas doesn't, like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody has that. Like, we're not doing
established
that.
state-based bands.
Yeah, we're not doing that. So Twitter didn't give Instagram wasn't into it. TikTok, we have it. We have Arizona. But it's just been a constant nightmare. The idea of Arizona and the way it's spelled has been a nightmare.
Yeah.
And so some people have fixed it. Spotify, I think, whenever they curate things, I think they do it right.
So on their playlist, they put y'all correctly in
Yeah,
the A's.
yeah,
But
yeah,
in like
yeah.
the massive like liked songs library, y'all are still an R. I think Apple Music still has you as an R, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't. I want to say like, guys, fix that because it can't be too hard.
No,
But then there's another part. But there's another part of me that's just like, you don't know how hard it is to do that. Like, it could, it's a simple, it's simple data entry. Like,
Sure.
you know what I mean? Like, in order to change the way that it's gonna treat an A space something might be ridiculous to do. So I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know
there's at least
how hard
26 different versions of that. 30 something
Yeah.
if you add numbers, but
Yeah. So I don't know. But anyway, yes, that's ridiculous that it's still such a thing. And I think that it's like, there's a really good lesson here. And I don't mean to go on a tangent, but there is a really good lesson here, right? Remember how earlier I said that it was a big joke, but the joke's on us, right? I think the lesson is that it's constantly reminding us to not take too seriously.
Fair.
Because listen, over the last 6 years has gotten very real. It's gotten really serious, right? Things have I mean, this has become my livelihood. You know what I mean? Like, this is everything that I do right now, basically. And so there is a notion that you begin to, like, develop, like, you end up feeling a lot more pressure. You end up taking things a lot more seriously, and for lack of a better word, like, you have less fun, right? As things get more real, like, you begin to have a lot less fun, and it's not like we just got our homies together and shot a Bad Blood cover with our boy Chomik in our other boys, backyard with all of our homies, and just, for fun, like, in a summertime, it's it's nuts now. And so when things like that happen and they're super frustrating, and it's like, You know what I mean? I think it's kind of just life poking us back and being like, you did this,
Yeah.
dummy. You know what I mean? Like, and
You
if you
literally asked
still,
for this.
yeah, you asked for this because at that point you were able to laugh at the small.
Mhm.
And if you can't do that now, check yourself,
Yeah.
because if you stop being able to laugh at the small, like, you're gonna have a heart attack at 35. Like, you need to chill
Mm,
out. You know what I mean? And because it
exactly.
ain't worth it. It doesn't. Who gives a shit if you're listed under R? Like, shut up and
Yeah.
go make music and have fun. You know what I
Like
mean?
you said,
So
it's about the content.
yeah, and it's a weird balance between that mindset there and also running a business and a brand. So it's like,
Yeah.
growing into that natural, duality is, I think, an interesting thing that does come with a lot of weird lessons like that. But one of the important ones, I think, is to try to somehow still find ways to have fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Of course. And that's what it all comes down
uh,
to.
why did we do that?
I mean, it's given you a lot of
Yeah.
talking points though.
Yeah, yeah,
Silver linings, man, silver linings.
yeah, nobody knows that we're not from Arizona until we're from New Jersey, and everyone's like, "Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
why Arizona?"
Exactly, exactly. Speaking of phenomenal segues, earlier you mentioned the language of music, and I did want to ask, just to branch a little bit away from the music, you speak a lot of languages. How
Um,
many? And please tell us more about that.
I mean, I only really comfortably speak English,
Hmm.
but I can get by in a couple different languages, like, um, I can do alright in things like Spanish and French. I can read and write Korean. I know some basic German. I try to pick up a little bit more. Um, like, at one point, I got pretty bad at it, but at one point, I could read Arabic. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think what it really is like, I just moved a lot growing up, and I had a lot of different friends, from different cultures and stuff, and some of those cultures I either lived more deeply in than others and learned the languages that way, or um, I think it just kind of became a fascination of mine, really, when I
yeah,
was young. Some of it was necessity, and some of it, I think, was also fascination. Like, when I was around, you know what I mean, like, when all your friends in a certain place are Korean, or all your friends in a
yeah,
certain place are, Puerto Rican or Dominican, or whatever it is, like, and you get invited over for dinners or barbecues a lot, or, like,
yeah.
whatever it is, or just you eventually, just life kind of forces you to pick it up.
Yeah,
Or if you're in a neighborhood where if you live in a neighborhood where when you go somewhere and you want to get something at the store or order something somewhere, blah blah, and like it needs to be in Spanish, like that's, you know, um, or French, in the case of the islands or whatever it is. Like, there's different circumstances that can lead to it, but I think the other half of it was I just kind of enjoyed it because that's that's how you like communicate
yeah.
with people on multiple levels, right? Like, it's not just, "Hey, can you pass me the
Right.
fork, please?" Right? It's like, "What are you trying
Exactly.
to do? Get a fork." It's like, "Okay, well, I don't really need to say something to somebody,
Yeah,
I
you
can
could
just,
just point at the fork.
beep, 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 please, fork," right? As opposed to, like, if you're really trying to, understand somebody on a different level, or if you're trying to get somebody to understand you on a different level, like, their language is their vehicle for that. And
Yeah.
if you have completely separate languages, and also the cultures that come with language, like, obviously there's lots of different Spanish, right?
Yeah, for sure. As
Um,
as we've discussed about our differences in
y-
Spanish.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, like, I think that it's a great learning tool. It's a great way to understand different people and different cultures, and it's also a nice thing to just be able to have. I mean, even if you're not fucking polyglot level,
Yeah, no,
even
for
if you
sure.
can't, like, just fucking pop off in some
You can't run a
crazy
UN meeting, but
random.
you can talk
Yeah,
to a
you
few
can.
people there.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm not. I'm definitely not doing any trade deals between countries, but but you can basically communicate. And I think that
Yeah.
that's something that is something I started just early on in life, and I
Mhm.
guess I just carry it on to later parts of my life, I
Yeah.
guess. But like I would never be comfortable doing it, and I've been asked before. Like I've done like radio drops in like
Mhm.
Russian or Spanish or like
Wow. Yeah.
in whatever else, right? But like I would never be comfortable doing like an interview in Spanish or French, even though those are possibly my two stronger languages. But
Yeah.
and is the reality like could I possibly? Yeah, possibly. Would I? No. No,
Right.
absolutely not. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Dog, you're
um,
telling me I learned Spanish first, and I have to this day still never done. That's a lie. I've done very short interviews in Spanish, but where I'm being asked the questions, I cannot feel as though I can lead the conversation in Spanish with someone who only speaks Spanish. The vocabulary
yeah,
just isn't there. You know, like I
eh,
speak it, I grew up with it. I
yeah,
sound so dumb in Spanish compared to English.
yeah. I mean, well, that's the other thing is that the vocabulary is a big part of it, but it's also kind of like knowing how to change your tone, right? So, for
Yes.
example, right, like I am obviously, I'm obviously speaking in a way right now that's probably a little bit different than the way I would speak with my homies if we were
Yes.
just hanging out, right?
Mhm.
Now, not entirely,
No.
but it's not.
I'm gonna have to do a lot of bleeping in this episode.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like not entirely, but I guess what I mean is that it's more than just a vocabulary difference.
Sure.
Like you kind of change your delivery, you
The
change a lot of
nuances
different
of it,
things.
yeah.
There's small nuances, and like knowing how to shift that in a language is
It's major.
yeah, that's a big thing, and that's something you got to be really comfortable with. And I
Yeah.
am I am not in barely in English, honestly.
Right.
So like it's difficult
Sure.
to imagine trying to do that in a different language. So yeah.
Mhm. That's fair. And actually, as a side note of the language thing, you did mention. Sorry, now I'm the one going on tangents and
No,
etc.
no.
But you did mention wanting to be a history teacher. You kind of do this a lot. You pick like a thing and you kind of just immerse yourself in it and learn everything there is to know about it, or as much as you can teach yourself. Because in the time that I've known you, like you've mentioned that you know about space, you know about flying, you know about 3D printing recently. Like
Yep.
there's a lot that you kind of just pick up and go for it, and then all right, on to the next thing.
I mean, life is an adventure. It's got a finite amount of time to it, and I think that the biggest thing that I didn't enjoy about growing up is that um, there were a lot of things that I wanted to do that I wasn't able to do, and um, I'd say a solid percentage of those things I was able to do anyway by just
Yeah.
finding a way to do it, and some of them I legitimately wasn't able to, because you need money for some things and other
Yes.
things, whatever. Um, and I guess I'm at the point now in my life where I want to explore more of that stuff, deeper, right?
Yeah.
But I have always I think I have always just been that type of person, which to be fair, sometimes can be a little distracting. So it's not all amazing, but I do think because you get involved in dumb shit sometimes, and it just becomes like you're a week or two, and everyone's like, "The fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
But but
The
yeah,
struggle of being innately a curious person.
yeah, yeah. Like I'm just, I really am curious about a lot of the way things work in the world, and I grew up wanting to be, I grew up wanting to be a pilot in the Navy, and I was
Yeah.
going to do that my whole life. And then it ended up not working out. And then I had to do something. I enjoyed music, so I was like, "Kid, I'll do, I'll
Yeah.
get into music. There's got to be something here deeper than just fucking around on a Saturday, right? Like,
Right.
there's more to do here." So I did music, and then that's obviously kind of the thing that stuck for the most part. But then when it didn't, basically at the end of being the producer thing and going into Arizona, I was gonna go become a history teacher because I
Right.
love history. I love I love the idea of good teachers, right? And so I really would have enjoyed doing that. I still study a lot of history now. Um, and yeah, 3D printing is just, I think, a bigger part of my tinkering and building shit thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I have a woodworking shop outside that I'm working
Yeah.
on building. I have the 3D printer down here in like my soldering station, where we do, because we also do, like, as a group, a lot of us, like, we also make our own cables for
Mhm.
tours, for studio stuff. Like we're all generally pretty savvy when it comes to basic stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just I really enjoy doing like that.
There's a lot of
So
overlapping interest.
yeah, yeah, and you can find, I think that's how I do it. I think I find where, like, and it's sometimes it's a bit of a stretch, but, like, I'll find where things intersect. Like,
Right.
I really loved, so here's the stretch, right? Like, I love
Yes.
gaming, right? I love, like, I have a whole, like, flight sim cockpit upstairs that I built for all crazy, and the controllers that they make, and like the button boxes and all this weird are so sick, right? And they're expensive, but they're so sick, um that I was like, oh man, like, I also like tinkering, building stuff. Like, I wonder if I can make my own controller, right?
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, like, you kind of, I would imagine somebody thinking to themselves, like, why the are you doing this? Just go buy one if you want another one, or like, they're out there. And if it's not like a mainstream one, like, then go on
Mhm.
Etsy and find somebody who does that all day and makes
Right.
cool custom ones, whatever. And
It's
I'm
like,
like,
"Dog,
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
wanna
yeah.
make it though."
Yeah, that's fucking cool, but I don't care about that. Like, I don't get off on giving somebody my fucking money and getting
Right.
something, right? Like, I don't care about that. Like, I could do that, but if it was about getting the dopest thing, I would go pay somebody to do it, because
Mhm.
you should do what you're really good at and pay somebody else to do everything else, right?
Yeah.
This is not a job. It's not about that, right? Like, it's not about getting the best thing for my sim pit, right? Like,
Yeah.
I just want to learn it. I want to do it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, then you get into soldering and cutting stuff, and then, like, you can find out that you can 3D print certain parts, and then you get into that, and then you realize that 3D printing is a whole world of its own outside of
Right.
your original goal. And then you're like, oh well, like, if I can 3D print this thing,
Mhm.
then I can put it on something that I can make maybe out of different materials,
Mhm.
but I'm gonna need a whole other shop for that. And then you just get into that whole other
Yeah.
world, and then you're talking about and the differences between single and dual bevel miter saws, and it's just like, you just go. That's what I mean. Like, it's a stretch,
Yeah.
and to someone else, I imagine they're listening to me and being like, "Yeah, none of that related. Like, what the are you talking about?" But um,
That's the point of
yeah,
this
but if you
episode.
just
We wanna know who you are as an individual and not as a band member.
yeah, but yeah, like, but a lot of us share that, I think. But I think
Yeah.
it's like, if you enjoy something as an idea or in your
Mhm.
head, there really isn't anything in between you and it other than a couple steps of, like, doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I
Fair.
didn't know how to make, I didn't know how to operate a miter saw, properly, until I got one and looked it up and did a lot of research on it. And then, you practice it a couple times. Don't lose a finger, please, for the love of God. Safety first. Right? But then after a while, you're like, "Oh, this is a really simple tool, and it's really meant to do, like, 1 or 2 things, and that's it." Now, mind
Mhm.
you, if you don't have 400, $500 to build a miter to buy a miter saw, fine, I get it. I'm just saying, like, and that's what I
Easy
that's what I
money,
mean,
bro,
though. Like,
pocket
you do need a
change.
little bit of money to do
Yeah.
things, which is why, like, I had to wait till I got older and made something of myself to have the freedom to do some things, and that scales. But, like, it was the same concept when I was younger too. Like,
Yeah.
I basically built the first car that I drove. It was a
Sick.
1995 Pathfinder,
Yes.
and it was like a piece of junk. And I had to, like, yeah, whatever. But
It was yours, and you made it.
yeah, yeah, you know what I mean? And so there's not really a whole lot says you can't do something. You just need to, I guess, figure it out.
Mhm.
And that's fun to me. So that's why I
Yeah.
do it. You know what I mean? Like, I
Uh-huh.
get into crazy all the time. So
Which
yeah. My next
absolutely
thing is, like,
nothing wrong with that.
yeah, my next thing is trying to figure out, like, either like a uh like coding Arduinos to do custom things,
Yes.
and maybe Python because it's easy. I don't know, we'll see.
Python was a fun class. I remember Python.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, and like I said, you're the type of person that just kind of does things, so you'll get it. You'll get it done.
We'll see.
I
We'll
think you
see.
should also make it a future project of yours to, print some more portal cubes, but that might just be me.
Yeah, I have to recalibrate, I think, my printer. I got a glass bed for it, which is a little bit better for getting smoother textures on the bottom of the surface. It's also supposed to be more level, but
It's
for
not.
some reason, it's pretty pissed off with that. And so I'm gonna be honest with you, when I picked up this button box project that I'm building, and also a custom studio rack. I'm building a custom studio desk right now.
Again,
Um,
overlap.
yeah. When I picked up those projects, I like put a couple of boxes of wires on top of my 3D printer, and I haven't taken it off yet. So it's been like a 2-week
It's
rest.
it's on hiatus.
I'm letting it rest for a little bit, and hopefully it works itself out. Because that's how technology and engineering works, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
if you don't look at the problem, eventually it solves itself.
Yeah, it just goes away.
Isn't that how we put a guy on the moon, right?
Yes. Please, please don't look too closely. That's just how it works.
Oh God.
Well, Zach, thank you. Zachary Charles. Sorry, I was told to address you by your proper title. Thank you so much for.
I'm in trouble. Is that wow?
No. Thank you
Listen,
so
anytime,
much
dude.
for doing the show. Yes, it's been a long time coming. It started as a joke on a random Sunday when I wasn't on air, but I'm glad that it finally happened. I hope the listeners are glad it finally happened. Put a face to a name, to a song, etc. Are there any final closing remarks, statements, shout-outs that you would like to do?
Shout outs. That's an interesting one. I mean, I mean, obviously, I really enjoy the opportunity to do this. My favorite medium, I think, has been podcast because it's just real. I really enjoy it, and yeah, I guess to anybody who would be interested in what we've been up to or what that timeline looks like, we have been finishing up our third album, and we're looking at possibly doing a tour before the end of the year, which is nice. And it really shouldn't be long here in between all the different collabs and stuff that we've been doing. Like we just put that song out with Matoma, Heart So
Yes.
Big,
Heart So Big.
and we have another interesting collab in the works as well that should be sooner than later, really sooner than later, possibly. And the whole album process has been coming together for anybody who does listen to the music and wants to know where it is. It's basically
Coming soon.
basically getting wrapped like right now, which is why I look like I just woke up. So yeah.
Fair. I mean, at least you're wearing the
but
AZ
thanks.
merch.
That's right. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna rip it.
Exactly. Got to rep. All right. Would you like to give us a closing song to end? Like, what are you listening to? Doesn't have to be something from the band.
What am I listening to?
Or what's a go-to?
My favorite. I think one of my favorite records right now is let me see it here because I think there's a few different remixes of it. The one that I really enjoy is called Moments, and it is by oh man, where is it? Moments, and the mix is by Ben Bohmer and Kidnap, I believe.
Sure.
Yes, yeah, I think it's Ben Bohmer and Kidnap, who I love both of. Ben's too busy. Ben's too busy for me, but Kidnap and I got in touch, and I think we're gonna try to do something together. He's amazing. But anyway, this song is
Exciting
amazing.
stuff.
Yeah, Moments.
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing the show again. We'll sign off with Moments by Ben Bohmer and Kidnap. Unless that's not the correct version, you can just let me know and I'll fix it whenever I air this episode. But without further ado, this is Karla with a K signing off. This has been Podcast with a K. You're listening to WECS 90.1 FM. It's the midweek. Have a fantastic rest of the week. Or if you listen to this on an actual Sunday, regardless, have a fantastic week. Just have a good life, all right? Be a good person, etc. All right,
That's
bye.
right.